I know, because this is one of the stories that's so big when you're a talk show host. Every once in a while, you start getting text messages from random people that you hadn't heard from in a long time. Like, what is going on here? And, hey, I feel you. Because this isn't like a soap opera. This isn't two, 8th grade girls having a tiff over who's going to be the best friend and who's going to be the second best friend. This is the richest guy on planet Earth and the most powerful guy on planet Earth. You're not supposed to know The Young and the Restless, Garrett, much less cheer the theme song. I have a lot of questions about this guy on the other side of the glass. What is his bit? Where did we get him? He seems so normal, and then he just says random things like, I love The Young and the Restless. Shame on you for recognizing the theme song, sir. That'll be a different show. We need to get you evaluated. You're interrupting like an important point here, though, but it's not just like two of these, super friends are having a tiff. Now that we've all been able to calm down and it's been, right at 24 hours since this happened, I think we all feel a little bit better about this than when we first got the news about the tweet saying, Trump's on the Epstein list. And, my first reaction was, is that true or is that the ketamine talking? Well, now just seeing how they both continue to react. Epstein list. Okay, he's on the flight log somewhere, but nothing so damning that it would end his entire career or his life or whatever, because that would have been a burnt bridge. And so, okay, also, if he is the type of guy that is going to the Epstein Island to do nefarious things, probably with underage girls, then you wouldn't sit around and work with him. You wouldn't continue to work with him. You wouldn't say nice things about him ever again. In fact, you would disavow him and you would burn the media to the ground until they got the Epstein list and put this evil person behind bars. I mean, if he was one of those people. So I think we're all leaning away from that, myself included. Trump's probably on some of the flight logs, but nothing damning about going to the island. Also, we actually got a response from Trump yesterday, right after the James show. He's sitting around and just normally taking questions from the media. And of course, Elon comes up. He was asking about the feud yesterday. And he really just talked about it for, actually a minute. I don't want to say literally a minute because my daughters say that too much, but literally a minute.
But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here. Better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. We want to have cars of all types. Electric, we want to have electric, but we want to have a gasoline, combustion. We want to have different. We want to have hybrids. We want to have we want to be able to sell everything. And when that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, it became a little bit different, and I can understand that, but he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape, he said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
All right, well, that's not the response of a guy who's secretly been a pedophile and worried about being exposed. So that makes me feel a whole lot better about the whole Epstein list accusation. And that also makes me feel better at that very last part there where he didn't say anything about me personally. Where's that again? Do that part.
Beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally. But
Right. That's the other key here. Because I go back through the statements on both sides, and neither one of them did do any personal attacks and actually burn bridges. And by personal attacks, there's a difference between the criticism of, Trump's on the Epstein list or sure would like some budget cuts versus what you normally see both of these guys do. Elon will tell someone, like he told the New York Times board, go F yourself. And you've seen what Donald Trump has done, just absolutely torching people, calling them pigs or whatever. Well, you didn't see that. You didn't see any ad hominem insults. What you did see from Elon last night was him retweeting Donald Trump from 12 years ago saying, we have to balance the budget. Any congressman who votes for a budget deficit should not be eligible for re-election. And Elon Musk was saying, I agree with this guy. And so he was, I don't want to say he's going out of his way to not insult the guy, but there were no insults thrown. There none of like, you're ugly, you're fat, you're stupid, you're orange. None of that. So now it's starting to creep up. Is this some sort of setup? Did they plan this out? Because both of them are being measured, and both of them are not known for being measured. So I'm against it, but against the idea that it's a setup, but not 100%. I think maybe 10, 20% of me thinks that these guys know what they're doing. And I don't know. What's the 3D chess they're playing here? Don't say 4D chess, no such thing. But what's the 3D chess they're playing here? Is this going to change the bill? Is this going to make the bill better or worse? Is this going to put pressure on politicians to act different in D.C.? Yeah, I don't see that either. See, that's kind of why I'm leaning against it. But we'll figure this out. We'll figure this out together. And, it kind of stinks to see mom and dad fighting. But according to Fox News, right before the James show started, they were saying that Elon wants to talk to Trump.
Well, it's been almost 24 hours since President Trump and Elon Musk's bitter public feud began. Both men quick to throw punches. Trump saying that Elon Musk was wearing thin, among other things. And Musk claims that Trump couldn't have won the election without him. There's some Epstein insinuations and even more. But a white flag may be on the horizon. According to the White House, Elon Musk now wants to speak with President Trump.
There we go. All right. Mom and dad are going to have a talk. They're going to go in the backyard, and y'all just stay in your room and play video games. Everything's going to be fun. No one's getting divorced. We're not going to have 2 Christmases. It'll work itself out. It's fine. My next guest is the great David Hamilton, now with the National Security Economic Center at UNT. He's always been our foreign policy analyst, and when we're talking about foreign affairs, David, something we were waiting on finally happened. Russia seems to have responded to the Ukrainian drone strike from, I guess, last week. Seems like a long time ago now. But the reports I read, 6 different regions of Ukraine were hit, but I didn't see any casualty reports. Do we know that yet?
Yeah, 5 reported dead for sure. One of which was a 1-year-old child, which is heartbreaking.
Yikes.
But you were right. When we spoke most recently, you said, does this portend a retaliation? And of course, that was very likely. But it's interesting, 3 days ago, they were talking about a prisoner swap. 2 days ago, Trump was speaking with Putin. And a day later, they're launching the largest attack. And by the way, there are lots of those. Ukrainians just can't consider this a Friday in their world. But 400 missiles, 44 ballistic missiles. 400 drones, and 44 cruise missiles were launched. And so this was probably the largest, but I'm not sure it was the most successful damaging, because there's not that much to destroy in Ukraine any longer, unfortunately.
What were the targets?
That's interesting. The good news is that these drones and missiles are not as precise as the Russians would like. They are trying to hit what they consider military targets. However, anything that's valuable to the Ukrainians, especially around the areas of power and communications, those are one of the bigger focuses, is to be able to knock out communications and power production.
I saw they hit the capital, Kiev, or if we're calling it Kyiv these days, whatever. Is that rare, or hasn't Kyiv been hit quite a bit?
Kyiv has been hit several times, and this was a significant impact on that city, their capital. And, you predicted it. It's happening. I guess this is what real arguing looks like, as opposed to what we see here in the United States that you've been reporting on most recently.
Yeah, right. We're talking with David Hamilton about a real lovers' quarrel. So let's talk about what's going on in Istanbul. Are they still doing the peace talks, or did that wrap up?
Those are still ongoing, and they are always a part of a process where, before any of the peace talks happen, there are briefs sent back and forth, positions, et cetera, negotiations and discussions. Then they have them, but usually not a lot is substantively done at the peace talks. They just basically will announce what they've already agreed to, and then after that, they test the waters, see how that played with everybody in the home and the home waters and the hometown, and then they go back to the drawing board a bit. What we don't have is an agreement from Russia to withdraw in exchange for various economic benefits, oil, gas dealings, et cetera, favored nation status, and all these sort of things that you and I have talked about. Putin is likely to lose his opportunity because Trump is now planning to visit with Xi, and Putin's leverage was with us, working with China against us. If we solve the China issue, Putin has no backer and no customer for its oil. So talking with Xi, I think, is a very good move. It gives us more pressure on Putin.
Well, David Hamilton, wasn't Russia saying that they would be on our side in the latest Iranian talks?
I like you, I don't really listen to a lot of what Putin says he'll do. I don't believe they will. They are getting these below average drones from them and other support. And I believe that Iran is actually helping them get around sanctions on their the sale of their oil. So they'll say that publicly, but to the Iranians, they're not going to push them.
Wait, so is Russia making their own drones, or are they sneaking them in?
No, Iran has provided drones to Russia.
That seems backwards. Isn't Russia the far more technologically advanced country?
But they're running out.
Yeah, I guess you would after 3 years of this. David Hamilton, National Security Economic Center. What do you think happens next? Is this getting us closer to peace talks or pushing us away?
I think this is a little bit of the same old. Until someone proposes, Putin, you can join NATO and the EU. We'll give you your pipeline back. We'll get rid of all the sanctions in exchange for your withdrawing. Maybe you keep Crimea, but you give up everything else. Until that happens, I think this continues to play out. But the new element is if we're going straight to Xi and we can work out some sort of short-term deal with them, they will apply pressure to Putin and say, we're not going to back you as much as we were, so you better do a deal now.
Did I hear you correctly? You floated the idea of Russia joining NATO or just working with NATO?
Actually, it was Putin that asked for that 3 years ago.
To join NATO?
To join NATO. In other words, saying we don't need NATO. We don't need to be enemies. Let's get rid of NATO. Let's have Russia join the EU. All of those things were said 3 years ago. Whether he meant them or not, I don't know, but he was the one that proposed it.
Yeah, why don't you join the organization that is sole existence is countering your power?
And his point is we don't have to have that any longer. And he even acknowledged that the real geopolitical threat in the entire world is not Russia. They don't have the power, the economy, et cetera. And they don't even have the aspirations to take over the world. They just kind of want to take over their neighborhood. It's China that we have to worry about, and we all need to line around dealing with that existential threat.
Yeah, I mean, China's a threat, but I think Putin does want to take over, at least, Ukraine, maybe a little bit more than that. All right, good stuff. There's David Hamilton, National Security Economic Center at UNT. Thank you for being on the James Show, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's weird how big stories like that, 6 different regions of Ukraine were hit by Russian airstrikes, ballistic missiles, 400 drones. We're over here talking about a lover's quarrel between the two most powerful men on the planet. But still, hey, they're both important. So now that we've had good 24 hours to digest what's been going on, remember, this all blew up really with the tweet of Elon Musk saying, here's the big bomb. Trump's in the Epstein list. And, that'll get everyone's attention because we still don't have any answers on the Epstein list. And we also know that, there's some people that are in the flight logs, but they didn't go to the island. There's probably people that went to the island, but not during one of the Diddy party freak-offs. I don't know. I'm getting my stories mixed up here, aren't I? But now that we've had a little time to see what's happening and see what the reaction is, I can get why a lot of people think this is a setup. I can get why a lot of people see what's going on and say they're playing the media. And look, I got a lot of emails from you yesterday, a few this morning, a lot of Facebook messages. Here's an example. Romero, who has emailed the James Show before, he says, I'm thinking Elon and Trump are working the fake media. The way they are talking is so overboard. Well, yes and no. It's overboard, but only to a limit. I don't know. I think it might, it's not like overwhelming or underwhelming. I think it's just whelming because when you look at it now, you're right. There's been no personal attacks. Elon didn't call him fat and orange. Trump didn't call him anything, but that's a personal insult. Didn't make fun of his accent or his drug use or whatever. So the criticism has actually been saying somewhat not professional. It doesn't feel professional, but it's not an ad hominem attack. They're not making it personal. They're not burning the bridge. So I think your instincts are right there, Romero, but I just don't think it's that much overboard. So if there is like just a little bit of a sensationalism thrown out there to kind of head fake the media, you have a couple options there. This could be a master plan from Trump and Elon. Let's go out there and get into a slap fight. And while they're distracted, we go do other things while they're looking at the shiny keys. This could be something that's not necessarily planned out, but just kind of a concept that's just Elon based only, and Trump's not in on it. Because Elon's the one that threw the Epstein file out there, and that's kind of what caught fire. Is this just a sloppy plan from Elon? Is Elon butthurt that he went in, did all this work with Doge, took all this heat, ruined his brand, got his dealerships firebombed, had his cars keyed all over the continent, and then you're not even going to codify my cuts? And the president, when the Congress didn't want to codify the cuts, you're not going to call him out on it. You're going to say it's a good bill. So maybe Elon's just trying to stop the big, beautiful bill, or maybe get it overhauled quite a bit. I don't know if that's going to work. We need to have more actual Republicans saying, hey, listen, we're kind of the party of smaller government, and this bill doesn't make government smaller. So I like all the tax cuts in there. I like removing the taxes on tips and firearm suppressors and things like that, but this still grows government. And so philosophically, I can't support it. Why is there only like 4 guys? It's like Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, and I think Mike Lee and me. Shouldn't everyone in the Republican Party, everyone with the R after their name, say, hey, this grows government. Can't do it. Come back. Balance the budget. That's my priority number one. Because I see, like, when Rand Paul or even Elon criticizes it, I see some forever Trumpers, the opposite of an ever Trumper, say, well, you're shooting this bill down, but you're not proposing one of your own. So, well, here's my proposal. Balance the budget. That's all. If that's asking too much, then you're not a limited government, or you have no principles. How about that? You may say you're for limited government. You may say you want smaller government. But if you're willing to go out there and vote for a bill that makes government bigger, then you have no principles. You're not really for smaller government. You just say that when it's time to get elected. And we can't keep doing that. The countries that do that, the societies that do that, the empires that do that, all collapse. Why did the British Empire collapse? Because armies overran them? No, not really. That kind of only happened here in America. It was an economic collapse. Why did the Spanish Armada actually get beat by the British and in the Spanish domination? It was an economic collapse that preceded it. Why did the Soviet Union collapse? Did they not have a Golden Dome missile defense system? And so they were left vulnerable to outside attacks from missiles? No, that's not how they fell. It was an economic collapse. They got over their skis. They printed money till they couldn't print anymore. They borrowed money till they couldn't borrow anymore. And when they couldn't pay their bills anymore, boom, the base of power falls out from under. There goes your empire. And we are not immune to these laws of economics. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. If this is some sort of plan, either a master plan from Trump and Elon, or maybe just a sloppy plan from Elon, will it work? 800-288-9227. As far as I see with the reply going from the Republicans in Congress, I don't think this is going to work. And I'm told that on an airplane right now, America's favorite El Salvadorian illegal immigrant, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he's coming back. He's been indicted on human trafficking charges here in the United States, and he's going to get his day in court, it looks like. Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, an immigration attorney, coming back on the James Show to explain some of this to me. So he's going from the terrible, worst prison ever in El Salvador to where? Just a regular old federal prison here? Would it be a state prison? Do we know?
I don't think we know where they're going to detain him, or, what charges are actually pending. I've heard smuggling. I heard you just say trafficking. I've also heard harboring. So who knows? It could be, he had some friends in his car and got pulled over. It could be that incident. So all of that, I think, is TBD. But the important thing is that he is no longer in El Salvador, which I think is very, very good news.
Well, it says a federal grand jury has indicted him for allegedly transporting undocumented migrants. Now, that sounds like it could have several different charges.
Right. I mean, there's different laws in different states about what is transporting and harboring. Like in Texas, there's a harboring law that says if you have the intention to hide an immigrant, then you can be in trouble for harboring. So an example would be if you have someone in your car as a passenger, that shouldn't be a violation of the law. But if you hide that person under a blanket when the police pull you over, then that could tip the scales. So I think, it's one of these, we don't know which law it is. We don't know the facts or anything. And I don't know, maybe, this is what they needed to do to provide sort of cover for the Trump administration. Like, oh, we've indicted him and then we're, essentially re-extraditing or whatever the word would be to bring him back. And that's how they do this and save face. But at the end of the day, he was wrongfully deported to El Salvador and he's being brought back.
Well, that's
important.
I think the wording's important here. He wasn't wrongfully deported. He was just undocumentedly deported. I think it was an undocumented deportation.
It was absolutely wrong, and here's why.
They just didn't have the right documents. It was the right thing to do. They just didn't have the documents.
No, wrong. He had something called withholding of removal, which is like asylum. It's a protection that you get before a judge. I've done many of these cases in court. It's very hard to win withholding. You have to have evidence. You have to go before a judge. You have to be subject to cross-examination. It is not an easy thing. And withholding of removal is an order of a judge that says that this person cannot be returned to the country that they seek protection from because they are at risk. And that's what he had. So he had a court order saying he could not be returned to El Salvador. And that's what the Trump administration did. I think in error, maybe. It doesn't really matter. They did it, and then they refused to bring him back, and now they're bringing him back. And that's, I think, what is, worthy of celebrating, is that wrong has at least been righted. And we'll see what happens with this treatment now. But anyway, I think it's good news.
Well, we're talking with Kate Lincoln Goldfinch. She's an immigration attorney with Lincoln Goldfinch Law. You don't appreciate my sarcasm there because they're bringing him back here to run through this whole rigmarole so they can get the document that says we can legally deport him now. So he's just an undocumented deportee.
Well, we'll see what they do. I mean, the thing is actually somebody with withholding could theoretically be removed to a different country. The protection is only against El Salvador. So, I mean, I think shenanigans are to be expected, but the one country that he can't be sent to is El Salvador under court order.
We should send him to Canada then. All right.
Well, I mean, he might not be too mad about that.
Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, what happens to his legal spouse during all this?
Well, I mean, I guess, who knows? She maybe gets to go and visit him, hopefully.
Well, I just as an immigration attorney, you obviously have dealt with people in a similar situation, and what happens to because I do have concern with his wife's an American citizen, if I remember correctly, right?
That's right.
So what's the process like if you're an American citizen and you're married to an illegal and you get caught in one of these deportation battles?
It's complicated. It really depends on the immigrant's history and whether they are eligible for a green card and which avenue they take and whether they need a waiver and whether they have to wait. So a lot of that is, not known, but he would not be someone immediately eligible for an easy green card based on his history. That's for sure.
Well, Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, let's say he goes to trial, he gets convicted of some serious crimes. Does he have to do his time here and then he gets deported? How does that work?
Yeah. Yep. When an immigrant who is up for deportation is convicted or sentenced to jail time, they serve their time in the U.S. and then they go before ICE and the deportation occurs.
What do you think is going to happen?
I would be surprised if they had real strong evidence against him for a conviction, but I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. I'm not going to guess this one. I'm not a betting woman.
No, hey, that's all right. If you don't know, there's an honor in admitting that I don't know how this is going to end up either, Kate. So your guess is probably a little bit better than mine. Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, immigration attorney. Thank you very much for being on the James Show.
Thanks for having me.
And you can use that term, by the way, undocumented deportee. I know it's going to come in handy for you. All right. Speaking of illegal immigration, some people are upset that illegals were getting in-state tuition in Texas, but I was wondering, why are they allowed to go to college here at all if they're illegal? So coming up next, 800-288-9227. That all ends. Details coming up on the James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.